welcome to Rita's Paper Motif. Today is part 2 of a class that I started last week, which it was introducing the measurements for an A2 size card. So if you haven't seen that video first, you may want to go back and check it out. All right, before we get started with our class today, I did want to share a few things with you. First of all, I'm Rita, here at Rita's Paper Motif. I like to create card designs, scrapbook pages, and 3D projects, and I love to share them with you in hopes that you will create as well and that you'll share your creations with those that matter in your life. All right, so a few things I do need to share with you that are quite important. And right now, Stampin' Up! Is offering, starting tomorrow, is offering free shipping on any order $75 or more. So this is a fantastic time to go in and get that cardstock, because you know paper is kind of heavy. And your designer series paper and anything that is like a heavier item, like maybe you need a cut and emboss machine, something like that. Now would be a great time to get it because it's free shipping. And so who wouldn't like free shipping? Now in the past, for me at least, you know, I'd place an order and then all of a sudden there'd be free shipping, and I'd be kind of angry at myself that I didn't wait for a while before I ordered. But now we have plenty of notice, so starts tomorrow, April 23rd through Friday the 25th, and then it ends. So now is a good time to go ahead and get all of those heavier items that you want to purchase and get them shipped for free. And also, while you're doing that, remember that you now earn Stampin' Rewards with every $20 purchase. So it used to be that you would earn rewards if you had a purchase of $150 or more. You would earn rewards. But now it's made it easier for all of us, and it's actually kind of pays us to shop, right? So for every $20 purchase, you're going to earn 10%. This is also true if you're a pumpkin subscriber. You'll earn those rewards. Now the great thing about these rewards is you can use them as you go. So you make a purchase, you want to use your rewards, you can do that. Or you can bank them and save them so long as you do use them within a year's time. So it's really like a loyalty program. So consider this, and then if you are shopping and taking advantage of that free shipping, you're going to be earning those rewards too. So what a great deal, right? It's a great time to be shopping. All right, let's move on to what we have been talking about. I do want to just quickly review it. So we talked about the A2 size cards, and that is mostly what we use here in the United States. And really, A2 refers to the size of the card. It refers to an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. I'm showing you white, but you'll see as we look at some other cards, it can be any color, right? Any color of cardstock. So you have a couple of options. If you place the 8.5-inch side at the top of your trimmer, so you put it at the top of your trimmer, and then you would cut at 4 1/4 because you're going to cut it in half, basically. So half of 8.5 is 4 1/4. Easy, right? So that's so easy to think about. So you could either do the math or you can memorize 4 1/4. And once you have sliced that in half, you now have, and I'll show you, you now have two pieces. Let me move this trimmer out of the way. Right here. Okay, so let's see. So you now have two pieces, or you have that one piece that's cut in half, right? So you have two card bases. Then once you take this card base, then you're going to put it in your trimmer now with the 11-inch side at the top, and you're going to score it at 5.5. Now when you score that paper at 5.5, you're going to have what we call a top folding card base, right? Top folding. I didn't want you to see what I wrote on the back. All right, so we still have 2 of those cards. And so now you have 2 cards, 2 top folding cards. And 1 card will be a portrait. And sometimes people call this vertical. I just call it portrait because sometimes when we're creating and I'm sharing with you, it's just easier to remember portrait because you can always think of a portrait of a person, they're sitting tall, right? So this is your tall. And then you're going to have landscape, and I know I misspelled landscape, but I know that. So you're going to have a landscape. The difference is the portrait will open from bottom to top. So the fold is at the top. The landscape, I have to turn around because that bugs me. The landscape has the fold at the left-hand side and opens from right to left. Okay? All right, so the other option is to take an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper of cardstock, and you're going to put it in your trimmer, and you're going to cut it at 5.5. So that half of 11 inches is 5.5. Easy to remember. So you're cutting your paper, your 8.5 by 11 inch piece of cardstock. Whichever way you cut it, you're going to cut it in half. Once you've cut it, then you're going to rotate your cardstock, or we'll have 2 pieces then, so you won't really have to rotate. Then you're going to score at 4 1/4. Now that's going to give you kind of a little bit of a different look. You're still going to get 2 card bases. So you're going to get a portrait again. Remember, portrait, landscape. Just so you know I can spell landscape, I did it right there. All right, so you have the portrait where it stands straight. The fold is on the left-hand side, and the fold is at the top. So those are your options for the 2 cards. Now, I wanted to show you, because we talked about how we're going to talk about this today, and I wanted to show you some cards. Let me get some cards already, and then we're going to make a card. So when you get that card base, so it's blank, it could be whatever color, right? So when you get that, you're going to probably want to embellish it with some color and just make it really pretty, right? Or whimsical, or whatever is your niche. And so you're going to need some layers. So I want to talk about that. So the first layer of a card, whether it's top folding at the top or side folding, whichever, whether it's portrait or landscape, you're going to need layers. And so here's a card with layers. Now I'm going to tell you that this layer was it was left over from a paper pumpkin, so I just decided to use it. And I just glued it on, used my multi-purpose glue and liquid glue. And I want to talk about that. So I use my multi-purpose liquid glue, especially for videos, because the glue it attaches quickly, but it does give you a little bit of time if you need to maneuver the card or the layer around, right? All right, so I took that piece of paper pumpkin, and here was my thought. I wanted to, let's get a portrait so we can look at the same way. I knew that if I put something on top of this card, I wanted a little margin of the white card base showing through, so it would frame that layer. So I know that I wanted an 1/8 of an inch on all 4 sides. So the area of this card is 4 1/4 by 5.5. So I knew that that's, if I cut a piece of, whether it's designer series paper or another piece of cardstock, that first layer, or whatever it was, that if I cut a 4 1/4 by 5.5, it would cover up all of the white card base. And sometimes I have wanted that, but in this case I didn't. So I decided I wanted 1/8 of an inch of a margin all the way around the layer. And so I knew that if this is 4.5 by 5, if it's 4.25 by 5.5, that I needed to take 1/4 of an inch off. So it would leave 1/8 of an inch on this side, 1/8 of an inch on that side. That's 1/4 of an inch total, right? 1/8 of an inch on this side, 1/8 of an inch on here, and that's a total of 1/4 of an inch. So I knew I needed to take that 4.25 by 5.5 and cut it down 1/4 of an inch. So now this layer, and this is the measurement that we all kind of memorize, and that is going to be 4 by 5.25. So that's giving 1/8 of an inch margin. And so then you can layer on top of that. I just kind of pulled this together for today's video, but you could layer on top of that. You can do pretty much anything. I just decorated it with some ephemera, and then just stamped it. So when you're starting out, you think about your stamps for your sentiments as well. We do now have a package of mix and match sentiments that you can take advantage of if you don't have a lot of stamps and you want a variety of sentiments. That's a good package to get, because not only is it somewhat inexpensive, you would just have a variety of sentiments, whether it would be thank you or thinking of you or happy birthday. It even has happy Easter, happy Mother's Day, happy Father's Day. So you just get a variety of sentiments. But you can put that on your, we usually call it a sentiment strip, but in this case I made a sentiment circle, I guess you could say. So good circle dies are great. This happens to be from the Spotlight Nature dies, and it's just great to have, because when you start die cutting, it just makes your crafting somewhat easier. But back to the card. So the base measurement is 4.25 by 5.5. The first layer, if you want 1/8 of an inch on all sides, is going to be 4 by 5.25. Now, perhaps you want a little bigger margin. Remember the card that I showed you last time? And that is, I'm getting it, sorry, that's this card. So this card has 1/4 of an inch on every side. So if we think about it, 1/4 and 1/4 is 1/2. So now we're going to take that 4.25 by 5.5, and it's going to become 5 by 3 3/4, and then you can you have 1/4 of an inch. So that's, if you take your basic, the starting point, which is 4.25 by 5.5, you know that depending on what margin you want on all sides, that's how you're going to cut that next layer. Now, I like to layer my cards. I like to do that a lot. So here's another card I used. This is the landscape. This was started out with the 11-inch side at the top, remember, and I cut it in half and then scored it at 4.25. So that's the landscape right here. And what I did is I made the black cardstock, because I wanted my blue matted. I cut that to be that first layer, which is what is it again? Remember? 4 by 5.25. And then I knew that I wanted a little bit, 1/8 of an inch around as far as the matting. I wanted that about 1/8 of an inch. So then I cut this part to be what? You're right. It's 3 3/4 by 5. And so this layer came from an envelope that was in the paper pumpkin. So I had already used, I believe on that particular envelope, I had used this top part. because I like to take my paper pumpkin and other kits and see how I can add product to it to create more cards and to create different cards. But the paper pumpkin is great if you're just starting out, because everything that you need to create that project or those cards is all in the kit, and basically all you need other than what's in that little box is maybe a pair of scissors. But in any case, I had cut that envelope apart, and so I was using this part right here. And then I took some more of that ephemera and just decorated it. And you can see the little gemstones. I know I was thinking, what got on here? But it's the gemstone. And I just took the gems and put them on there, and some ephemera and some twine. Now this twine is brand new, so you can get it in my catalog. It comes in a 3-pack. So there's a blue, and I think like I want to say Calypso Coral, but anyway, so that's basically what I did. And this sentiment strip I just cut down. I think it's 2 by 2.5, and then I just layered the top part. And then I took some of that stamp set that came in that paper pumpkin and stamped it and decorated the inside as well. So the point of this showing you this whole card is you can layer that featured paper that you have, whether it's designer series paper or in this case it was part of an envelope. Then you can layer it or mat it on another layer, and you're just going to bump up your measurements. So 4 by 5 1/4, 3 3/4 by 5. So if you're writing those down, that's just, you can remember that, right? All right, so then here's another card I made. And this is the same thing as this card. It is portrait style. This was landscape. Again, I wanted this to be, this designer series paper right next to the gorgeous grape, it didn't catch my eye. So what I did was I thought I'll just kind of, there's some white in there. I'll just mat it on some white. So again, I did, the card area was 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. This white layer is 4 by 5 1/4, and then this top layer is 3 3/4 by 5. And then I did just decorate it. I'll tell you, I'm going to put some pearls in the middle of these so that it brings that white in. And then I have this punch. It's called the Petal Park Punch. It is on the last chance list, so if you think you might like it, now is a good time to get it, because a lot of the items on the last chance list are marked down. But this will punch out different sizes of flowers, and you can layer them, and then the leaf. And so that's what I used to get these. And then when I put the white pearls in there, then it's going to look much nicer as well. But I just wanted to do this so that just to bring home those measurements again. And I will go ahead and embellish them. You can see that this is embellished with the twine. And that is something that is that's something that is how you like it. It's something that you choose to do. I like to have a little bit of cloth or texture on my cards, but this has a lot of dimension. It has the honeybees are on dimensionals. It has this honeycomb. This is it's like a little gold honeycomb that just is, I wanted it to be subtle, but yet there. And these bees were stamped, and I cut them out. And so I like to put a lot of stuff on my card like that. Now, I will say this. If you're going to mail your cards, you want to be mindful that if you want it, these will fit in a medium-sized envelope. But if you want that medium-sized envelope to go with regular postage, then you're going to want to be mindful of your layers, because if it's too thick, then it'll need 2 stamps. And cardstock, we have great cardstock. It stands up. It's just wonderful. So if you put too many layers, it can get a little heavy. But if you're hand delivering it, then there is no issue, right? But I am going to mail this, and I will put one stamp on it because it's not too heavy. And then I just did decorate the inside. Just stamped another sentiment, and I took part of this designer series paper. And this is something else I want to tell you too. You want to be mindful of the direction. So if the designer series paper has a direction, then you want to be mindful of that, and you want to be mindful of it here too. So I don't know if everybody notices, but I would notice that. So be mindful of that. So you can see these cards are cut from the same measurements, the 8.5 or the 11-inch side at the top, right? But they open differently. All right, so there's that. I just want to show you those layers. And the layers we talked about, where the base layer is 4 by 5 1/4, and the top layer is 3 3/4 by 5. Okay, so I wanted to show you something else. So this is another one of, actually it's the landscape. And so here's what I did. This is designer series paper. And when you get your designer series paper, I wanted to show that to you. When you get your, I'm just going to pull, actually it's from this pack. It's called the Unbounded Beauty. When you get your designer series paper, on the back of that package, whether it's a 12 by 12, this originally was 12 by 12. I cut mine down to 6 by 6. I know that some people will cut it in different measurements, but I never know when I cut it down what I'm going to be using it for. And I also like to scrapbook, so I usually will save a few pieces and I will cut them a 6 by 12. But in this case, this is what I cut down to 6 by 6. And on the back of your package, you'll have this, it's like poster board. It's what stabilizes your designer series paper. And the great thing about it is it not only tells you the name, so you will always have the name, you know how it came, but it also will tell you the colors that coordinate with the designer series paper. So we can see here that the coordinating colors are Berry Burst, Calypso Coral, Peach Pie, Petunia Pop, sorry I have to look a little closer, Pretty in Pink, Pretty Peacock, Shy Shamrock, and Summer Splash. We know that there are a lot of the in colors that were 24 to 26, 2024 to 2026 in colors are in there. But the Calypso Coral is not an in color, neither is the Pretty Peacock. So point that I'm trying to make is that it already gives you an idea of what colors you can put with the designer series paper and make it look nice. Now obviously, and this is like this is Shy Shamrock, and you can see the Petunia Pop. So I probably wouldn't put this with Calypso Coral, but you have to, you have to use your common sense a little bit. But who knows, there probably is somebody that can make that look adorable. So anyway, this is how I store my designer series paper. But you want to save that back part because I don't know about you, some of us have a lot of space in our brain to file this information, but sometimes it gets a little hard. So it's always nice to have it there where you can see what it is. But this is the Unbounded Beauty, and that's what I used here. And I did this on purpose because I wanted to show you that this card base is white, the basic white, right? It's that landscape. So I turned it on the 11-inch side, cut it in half, and it's top folding, so it's landscape. And I took the bottom layer, which is Calypso Coral, and this is the bottom layer that is 4 by 5 1/4. Then I took the designer series paper and I cut it to 3 3/4 by 5. Okay, and now on this one, they look alike, don't they? But if you notice, The card base is Calypso Coral, and then the first layer is basic white, and that is the 4 by 5 1/4, and then the designer series paper is then 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 by 5. And so they look very much alike. Now when you use colored cardstock, because sometimes it is so beautiful, you're going to want to remember that it's hard to write on here. You could, but it's hard to read a message, and not everybody's eyes may be as good as yours, or vice versa, whatever. But I like to put another 4 by 5 1/4 inside here of basic white, and then you can stamp your message like we did that in here, right? Because this is Gorgeous Grape, and so now I can stamp it and I can write my message. So the same thing you would want to do here. All right, so just showing you some difference. Now I wanted to make some cards with you, so let's go ahead and start with the first one that I had in mind. So this is Highland Heather. This was the 8.5 inch and then the 11 inch. Now I'm going to score that. I'll move this up so you can move it down, sorry. So I'm going to score that at 5.5. So with our trimmer, we have a ledge right here. So you need a good trimmer when you're making cards, you really do. I love this trimmer. I actually have a couple of trimmers. I have the big guillotine as well, so when I'm doing a lot of cutting, I'll use that. But this one is super because you can measure. So here's 5.5. It also has an arm that extends out to 17 inches, so a little over 17 inches. So for my scrapbooking, that works. So now we'll just move this to 5.5 because that's where we want to score. And something I want to bring to your attention. Sometimes we all do it differently, so it's not an issue. You can either move this right up to the line, you can move it over the line, or just before the line. Whatever you find yourself doing, though, you want to stay consistent. I put it right snug up to that line, is what I do. But I have to remember to do the same every time, because if you don't, your cuts will look like they're off. And it's not necessarily that they're off, it's just that you didn't line them up the same. All right, so we're going to go ahead and score our card. And then we're going to take our bone folder. Now, I like the bone folder because you know what it does is and now is a good time to make sure that these edges are flush, because it can happen. It can happen to the best of us. So just make sure they're flush. Take your bone folder and, secure that fold, burnish that fold. That breaks down the fibers of the cardstock so that it will lay, because you're going to want your cardstock to lay, right? All right, we're going to move this to this side because now we're going to bring our trimmer back in. And I had to make a decision. This is Highland Heather, and this is the same designer paper that we used a while ago. I wanted to think about if I wanted to just put this on there, or did I want to put white on there again. So I thought I want to do something different. So I decided to take some Gorgeous Grape, because that works too, because that's exactly the colors in the purple colors that are in the designer series paper. So we know that this area is 4 1/4 by 5.5. So we're going to take our gosh, I can't even think here. Let's see. We're going to take our cardstock, our Gorgeous Grape. We're going to line it up at 5, because this is going to be the first layer. We're going to line it up at 5 1/4, and we're going to push the scoring tool to the top, and I'm hoping that you could see that. So we're going to push the scoring tool at the top, and we're going to It moved on me a little bit. We're going to push our cardstock so it's flush up here and it's on the 5 1/4. We'll take our cutting blade and just go ahead and slice, right? So now we have that 5 1/4, and now we'll come down here to the 4. So here's 4. So we're going to line that up with the 4-inch line, and we're going to take our cutting blade and we're going to slice up again. Now we have that layer, which is 4 by 5 1/4, and we're going to save this because we don't know what we'll want to do with it. And then I want to layer on this. So because I like my margins to be about 1/8 of an inch, we're going to go ahead and stick with the program. Now, at this point, you could even make a bigger margin if you wanted to, but you're remembering those, subtracting that 1/4 of an inch, right? Because that's 1/8 of an inch, and 1/8 of an inch is 1/4 of an inch. All right, so we know that we're going to want this at 3 3/4 because we've already done that math. We've already memorized it. One thing I want to share with you is, though, look at your designer series paper. If I decided to cut it this way, that's going to kind of be a problem, right? Because this is directional. And that is just, oh, that's a leaf. I thought there was something on my paper. Okay, so we're going to do 3 3/4. We're making sure the direction is going the way it's supposed to. We're going to go ahead and I'll move it up so you can see. 3 3/4. There's 3 3/4. And we're going to go ahead and cut it. And then we know this is going to be way too long, right? So, okay, what measurement again? You're right. We're going to slice it at 5. We're keeping in mind the direction. So I'm going to butt that up to the top ledge so that it's straight. Put it on the 5 mark and go ahead and slice. So this is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Let's see if we have a margin. We do. Then we're going to glue this right on here, and then we can decorate it. So let's go ahead and just quickly do that. We're going to do one more card after that. But this is also our designer series paper, so I wanted to show that to you. Our designer series paper, it's Stampin' Up, has 2 sides. So it's double-sided. Now, sometimes this one side with the images is thematic, and this is perennial lavender. And so you can guess what the images are. And then on the back, it will have a different color. So this is almost like that bokeh, almost. It's just kind of like, it looks like maybe some leaves or some imprints or something, but it's beautiful. So you could use this side too. It just depends on which side you want. So we're going to go ahead and adhere this to our gorgeous grape. Now remember what I told you is that you want to be mindful of your layers because the card can get too heavy. So let's just go ahead and do this. So with the liquid glue, and I'm going to tell you this because I learned from experience that you don't need a lot of glue, of multi-purpose liquid glue, because a little bit goes a long way. And this will give you time to manipulate that layer so that you have that even margin. Our cardstock is lighter. Our designer series paper is lighter in weight than our cardstock. So I just do this. I don't even know why I started doing that. You want to not put too much glue also, because if you put too much glue, you're gonna see that little bubbles, like where the glue was, where the stream of glue is. And then we're just going to fit that on here with keeping in mind the margin. And you can see that I can manipulate it. I'm trying to It's a little hard to get it perfect when you're looking at it from an angle or a camera in front of you. All right, so there's that card. So I'm showing you the layers. So you saw how I cut it. So this was 4 by 5 1/4, 3 3/4 by 5. So now we have that card base. And then I would go ahead and stamp the inside. So we could stamp whatever we wanted. We can do that now. I want to use this Enjoy Your Day. And so, let's see, I'll get my glue, excuse my reach, not my glue, my dye. So we're using Gorgeous Grape. And while we're talking about the basics, card basics, and getting started, is our ink pads just slide and close. So once you close them, the pad is essentially facing downward, and that's so that the ink doesn't settle at the bottom of the tray. So this is the tray. But when you go to ink your stamp, then you can slide it this way so you have stability and your ink pad is not flying all the way. If you left your ink pad like that and you went to stamp it, let's see here. Is this the stamp I want? Yes. Okay, if you went to stamp it, you don't have, it's not stable, right? So just go ahead and slide it all the way in. You have a little groove here. I guess I wasn't paying attention there. You have a little groove here where you can pull out the lid. So let's go ahead and stamp this. And so you just tap, 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 especially with the rubber stamps. You can see I kind of moved it on purpose. You see how you'll get the ink here on the tip? Well, that's a problem now, because when you go to stamp it on your cardstock, you're going to get that line. You don't want that line. So I am going to wipe it off. But if you just tap on your stamp, then it'll work. All right, and let's just go ahead, and I really can't see. Let me pull it closer. Okay, and so you have that nice stamp. Now, let's close this ink pad because that's a disaster. And you see ink right here. If you push down the top here, you'll get some ink here. And if you take your water painters, you can do watercolor using it that way. So our inks come in what we call color families. And I suggest, if you're just starting out, I suggest that you start with a color family. And when you've collected all of those, then you can move on to another color family. So let's go ahead. This is, oh, I didn't check it. This should be 4 by 5 1/4. And I think it is. Let me hold this up so I can get it straight. It is. Okay, now you could put a piece there. This one is too short. That's one I had here. And then this one is the wrong direction. So you could also put your designer series paper on the side if you wanted to. So that's another option. So I'll just come back and put some flowers on here. I'll put a sentiment strip and decorate the front. But I am just going to leave it for now because I wanted to make another card with you. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to put the lid on my glue because it will kind of get stopped up. And I see the UPS man is coming, so we're probably going to hear the doorbell in just a minute. So what I want to use, there he comes. Oh, he didn't ring the doorbell. Good job. All right, so what we're going to use is a lot of product. This is Melon Mambo, and this is where the 8.5 inch side was at the top, and then we just cut down at 4 1/4, remember? So I'm going to use this as my card base. I'm going to use this as a layer, and I'm going to use this as my decorative designer series paper. So you can see on one side it's got the nice green leafy print. This is beautiful. This would be great for cards. This is from the same pack, and it has like the little pink flowers. It has the little snails. This all comes, this designer series paper came, or I got this designer series paper when Celebration was alive. So every year we have a campaign called Celebration, and the items in that little brochure are free with a qualifying purchase. So that's a good way to get some designer series paper. They had stamps, they have embellishments. So that's a good way to build up your inventory. But this designer series paper coordinated with a stamp set called Terrific Toadstools. So this allows you to go in and kind of embellish that. We're going to use this today too. And another thing that I like to use is when I'm creating my sentiment strips, I like, and I just kind of throw them in here, but I like to use dies that will cut different, that give me different options for that sentiment strip. So these are called the textured note dies. And so they're great because you can see, I cut a sentiment strip right here. You can see the texture, right? So we are going to layer that on there. But I wanted to just go ahead and complete a card from cutting to embellishing here. So let me move all my little pieces to the side because we're going to do some cutting. We're also going to score again because I wanted to throw a curveball to all of this. So this is our, like I said, our 8.5 by 11, and it was scored in the middle. But I want to do something different with this. I want to create just a little different thing. I want to create what I call the book fold. And so we know that in our trimmer that it was scored at 5.5, right? Yep, there's the score line. But I want to have like a little binding kind of for my card base. So I'm going to move this. So that was 5.5. I'm going to give myself an inch, and I'm going to move it to 4.25. And I'm going to score it again. So this is an extra score mark on that card base that we had already scored. And I'm going to move my trimmer out of the way for a moment. And so now when this folds, when we fold this, we are going to have something that looks like this, right? So in order to get it to look like that, we are going to need to glue it. But before we glue it, I want to decorate this so it'll look like the binding on a book. So that's where I'm going to take some of this paper. Now, not this one because this is my layer, but I'm going to take another strip that I had. So this was kind of part of that 6 by 6. And I'm going to cut this. I know this is an inch wide, and I know it's 4.25 in tall, right? So I'm going to cut it. How are we going to cut it? We're going to cut it at 4. And then we know this is an inch, so we're going to cut it at, I'm going to cut it at 3/4 of an inch. Now when you do the 3/4 of an inch, you have an 1.5 inches over here, or you can use this side. Sometimes it's easier to hold on to it and line it up so you're measuring on this side. So that's what I'm going to do. And then, whoops, I moved it. And then we're just going to go ahead and cut. And this will give me that part that I'm going to put right there. So we have a little bit left over. So let's go ahead and adhere that onto our card base. Now this is a little bit where the measurements will change, but your card base did not change. We just changed the fold the measurement for the fold, and I do need to bring it closer, sorry, so I knew that wasn't where I wanted it. Whoops. Okay, and I want some twine on here because remember I told you I love that. I love that. So I'm actually going to do this twice. Okay, and I'm going to give me a little extra because I'm going to cut this off. And now that I don't need to hold that tube, I'm going to fix my twine a little bit. What I kind of wanted was the I want this to be a little bit in the middle here. So there, I just kind of secured it. I'm just going to tie a knot. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm going to tie a knot, take this over and under. And I'm going to tie that knot. And now I'm going to tie a bow. Just like tying your shoe. And I know that there are some that are really good with tying those bows. I wouldn't say I'm horrible at it, but I like bows. I like the twine. Let's see. I do want the loops even. All right, so now we're going to go in and we're between the fold that was at the 5.5, right? And the fold that is at the 4.5, we're going to go ahead and we're going to adhere that down. So I'm going to bring some tear and tape in. You could definitely use glue. You could use your stamp and seal if that's what you use. I'm going to use my tear and tape. And I love the tear and tape because it is easy to place down, and sometimes I go over the side. So you just can tear it off with your finger, or if you need to use a block to tear it or whatever. And then we're going to take a pick tool, we're going to get that release because it has some like wax paper. It's double-sided tape, so you want to get that release paper off so that it can do its thing. And if you don't have this tape all the way down, you'll have a kind of a hard time getting that release tape off, but that's the only reason. So now I'm going to go ahead and I have just created that binding effect for the card. And so you can see now it's going to open up. Well, obviously, since we've altered the card with that extra score line, our measurement is not going to be 5 1/4 by 4, right? It's going to be different. So this is the part that I want on here. So now I know that this is still 4 1/4, but this is not 5 1/2. So if we take an inch off the 5 1/2, it's now 4 1/2, but we want a margin, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut this at a 4 by, let's cut it at 4 by, let me think. So it was 4 1/4. We're going to cut it at 4. This is 4 1/2. So we're going to cut it at, we want 1/4 off of 4 1/2. So that'd be 4 1/4, right? So 4 1/4. Wait, 4 1/4 is 4 1/4. Yes, 4 1/4. 5 1/2. What am I thinking? So this would be 5.5, and we're going to cut off an inch. So 4.5, that would be right to that score line. I don't want it right to that score line. So it's going to be oh, I guess I did have it right. Whew. Okay. So this is going to be 4.25 by 4. And then I want to put a layer. I had to really do that math, didn't I? Hope you wrote it down, because I don't I'll have to think about it again. All right, and then I want to use this, and again, we're going to keep track of the measurements, right? So this was 4.25 by 4. So this, if we're going to take 1/4 off of 4.25, which would be this side, it's going to now be 4. Am I right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And now, and I think I just messed that up. Let's see here. No, I didn't. All right, 4.25, and this is 4. That's what I was worried about. So if we take 1/4 off, that's going to be 3 3/4. Am I right? You guys have to keep me on check here, because all right, so now this is going to work, because now we have a margin right here, and that's going to go right on here. So let's go ahead and glue it down. You can tell I don't use this fold real often, but I do like to visit it. But you get to write that down, so you can, we did it together, and now you can write down that measurement. But even if sometime you've forgotten a measurement, you can work it out just like we did, right? Okay, there's that, and then there's this. But I just did want to really emphasize that you want to watch out for your directional designer series paper. Okay, let's see. And you can see how that liquid glue just gives me that little bit of time to manipulate. Now that, you know, I did pick certain things to go with this because this is kind of busy, right? So now all those little pieces that I did. So this was a smoky slate. You can see that there's some in here, right here. So I'm going to put that on there for my sentiment. And I'm going to put the basic white, and this is what I use the textured dyes for. So we're going to go ahead and stamp this, and I will tell you that I like to stamp before I stick. And let's see here. I'm going to have to use, I have all of my acrylic blocks out, and I've been stamping like crazy. So let's get the, and you can see how nicely the stamps fit. I just keep this thicker acetate on here. I don't even know why I do. But we're going to get this sentiment that says popping up to say hi. And we're going to use our Melon Mambo dye ink. And this is photopolymer, so it does look dirty, but anytime you have any kind of red tint, it is going to tint your stamps. And I like to stamp it off once to make sure I got a good clear stamp. If you have pets, I have a dog, and so sometimes those dog hairs can get where you least expect them. So it's always just good to check. All right, so there we go. We're through with that. Now I am going to take my glue, and I do store my glue in an old prescription bottle that I just covered up, took off the label, covered up, and I just put my glue inside like this. I do like to store it upside down. You'll find that most crafters do, because that way the glue is right to the tip when you need it. I don't ever use this side very often, but you can. And sometimes some crafters will have some like special things to hold their glue in. I don't know why I don't, but I don't. So let's see. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a little glue. Whoa, a little, that's too much. So I'll squish it around and use it all over. And you do want to stamp before you stick, because if you make a mistake, you can always turn your white piece over and try again. So like sometimes if you don't get it straight, or if the stamp wasn't very good, you can. Okay, so my sentiment strip is there, and now I want to embellish my card. So I did use the stamp set, and I stamped out some toadstools, and so I'm thinking, where do I want them? So that might be too much. I also have a little die that cuts out. Here it is. It came with another stamp set. I use it so much independently. I'm sorry, I don't remember what bundle it came with. I believe this is, I don't remember. Anyway, so I used it with the Granny Apple Green, because that's the green that's in here. And then I'm just going to put it like that. And I kind of thought I wanted maybe one of those toadstools. So you see that these are pumpkin pie, so I did stamp 3 of them, and I'll put them like that. So I don't know, that looks good enough. I think this is pretty busy. I had thought maybe I wanted to put this on it, but I think it's too much. So we're not going to use that. So let's see what we're going to do. I am going to put this a little stem at a catty corner on here, and I'm going to use a little bit of glue, not much. Now when you have really tiny places that you want to glue, sorry, I have to bring it closer so I can see how much glue. I don't want to put too much. When you have really tiny places, or when I have really tiny places and I need to put my glue, I'm going to show you how I do it. I just have an old canister. It was way back. We had a kit that we did, that these canisters came in to decorate. And so it's kind of like those ones you put your spices in, and they're magnetic. So I just took an old sponge, and then I have these clips. I don't know what they're called. And then I just leave it in here. But I'll put some glue either on the top here or on my silicone mat. I'll just put some glue, and then I'll dab the sponge and then dab it on the whatever I'm gluing. Okay. So before we finish decorating, I want to take this sentiment strip and I want to put some dimensionals on it. So as you watch me create, or whoever you're watching create, you want to see the items that they use, and if that's something that kind of strikes your fancy, then you know what kinds of things you maybe want to invest in first. I know when I first started, I had to be a little bit selective about what I purchased, because I couldn't have it all. But I did start on the dining room table, so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 6 dimensionals on here. And I will tell you that I do use probably more dimensionals than I need to, but it makes me feel more confident, so I just do. Dimensionals are not expensive, and they come, the regular size dimensionals come 3 to a package. We also have the mini dimensionals, so if you have a smaller area to give dimension to, then you can use the smaller ones. We also have black dimensionals. So if you're using black, if this were black, I might want to use a black dimensional so you couldn't see the white if you looked at it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. Let's see if I put that straight. And then I'm going to start putting my greenery. But I also want to find those little right here. So I'm going to just go ahead and glue them on here now so I don't lose them again, and then we're going to glue the greenery. So the reason I'm showing you this card is because you obviously saw that I had to think about the measurements, and so it's different measurements, but it's the same card base. So this is still an A2 size card. And here's what I do. I like, or at least what I did really in the beginning, because I had a hard time keeping up. There are just so many beautiful cards out there, and I wanted to make them all, is that I would write down the measurements, and then I would make the card, and sometimes I just made it out of printer paper because I didn't want to use up my good cardstock. And then I would put it in a little photo album, and I would put them there, and then that way I would have a copy, and so I could always refer to those measurements. So if you're just starting out crafting, paper crafting, or even if you've been doing it for a while and you see a new card design, because we have some really creative card makers, then you can case that card. Now you can really put this greenery anywhere you want. I'm going to put this one right here. I was sticking it underneath where the around those dimensionals that are holding up that sentiment. And then of course you would need a piece of white cardstock that would go on the inside, and it's going to be the same measurement as this piece, which we measured, which was what? 4.5 by 4, right? 4 by 4.5. 4.25. Sorry, 4.25. All right. Hope you wrote that down the first time, because 4.25. We're right. 4.25 by 4. And so then you can, these pieces I'm not going to use, but I did go ahead and stamp them out. Maybe I could use them on the inside when I do that white piece of cardstock. Okay, so let's look at how we could embellish this. Now, it has Granny Apple Green, Gray Slate, and I already had some little gems that I wanted to use. They're right here. So these also came in a paper pumpkin, and so I don't really know what color they are, but you can use these. Actually, they don't really pop out, do they? We could use those, and then I'll look to see. So here's some more that might really be better. Let's just use these up. These are on the last chance list. So if you went to the last chance, you could you could get some, and for cheaper. All right, so this is the other. I have two take a pick tools. So there's a story about this. So they come with two different ends, and these ends screw in like that. So this is a scoring tool. And then this has putty on the end, and it will help you pick up small pieces and your sequins. This one also came the same way, but for whatever reason, this part was loose in there, and it would rattle, and it was driving me nuts. So, you know, when you hear something rattle, you feel like you need to do the righty-tighty thing, right? Well, what would happen is the putty would come out and was all over the place. So I just bought another one, and that one doesn't have that putty part. So now I'm just going to go ahead and stick these on here. But when it's your card, you really can put whatever you want, and you can put these wherever you want as well. All right, so we made that card. I'm not going to use these. And I'm going to tie everything back up here. We're going to look at everything that we did. Let me just clean up a little so we're good. So I wanted to talk about the trimmer just a little bit. These trimmers are very nice. You can, if you don't have one, you can definitely find one in my online store. It's called the paper trimmer. You can always get replacement blades when these dull, because they will dull, but I don't change mine very often, and I make cards all the time. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you is they don't dull very quickly. All right, so there's the trimmer. So we used that. We also used the dimensionals, and they do come in a package like, so this is what they look like when you take them out of this package. All right, and then we also used the Terrific Toadstools, which you can find in the online store. It does come with some dies. Actually, no, it comes with a punch. I didn't get the punch. And then we use this little die, but you can look for sets that have dies. I actually believe this came in the Friends for Life. I think that's the set that this came in. All right, and so let's look at the cards that we've done. This is another card, just some more cards. These are all done with A2 size cards. All the bottom measurements for the most part, except for the one we just created. The very bottom layer is 4 by 5 1/4. The top layer is 3 3/4 by 5. This one is a little bit different. Remember, this one is 3 3/4 by 5. And then these two, we're just showing you how you could use, you know, the matting could be a different color. You could use the white card base, or you could use this is Calypso Coral. You could use this punch to punch some white flowers, and then you could do white for the bigger one and maybe Calypso Coral for the smaller one. That would be cute. And you could do a circle if you wanted to. So here's a circle. You could cut your own. You could layer the circle. So those Spotlight on Nature dies are really nice because it looks like it's stitched. Or you could use dies like the textured notes. So really the options are really up to you. But I wanted to show you this A2 size card base with just a little variation, which is another score line, and then how these measurements will stop. But you also saw how we figured out what the measurement was. So that just gives you a little idea of how you can as well. So I really hope that you got something out of today. I hope it in some way it was helpful to you. And I wanted to tell you that I'm going to come back next week. Now, last week we talked about fun folds. We talked about Z folds and easel cards, and we talked about gate folds. So next week I would like to touch or go back and look at the gate folds, and then probably the next time we'll look at Z folds, because Z folds are a whole big topic, and there are so many ways that you can use that Z fold, but it all does start from an A2 size. All right, so thank you so very much for spending time with me. Please don't forget that free shipping, especially if you're thinking of even the last chance, anything that you purchase. If your purchase is over $75, you get free shipping. So that's a very good thing. All right, so thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you all have a great weekend, and bye now.